September 1939. The golden age of comics was really heating up at this time. For the first time ever, there was 31 different titles on the newsstands with this cover date of September. 4-Color #1, Series 1, featuring Dick Tracy, September 1939, published by Dell Comics. 4-Color, also known as 4-Color Comics, was a long-running American comic book anthology series published by Dell Comics from 1939 until 1968. The title is a reference to the 4 basic colors used when printing comic books. The Overstreet Price Guide lists that there are over 1,000 individual issues of this series, making it the longest-running American comic book in history. The primary purpose behind 4-Color was a tryout showcase for a potential new Dell Comics series, and the series would have tons of spin-offs. Identifying this series can actually be a challenge, as only issues published from 1940 to 1946 carry the title 4-Color Comics on the cover. Issue #1 features Dick Tracy from writer and artist Chester Gould. Gerber rates this issue as scarce, and there is a mile-high pedigree copy of this book from the Edgar Church collection. Mutt and Jeff #1, September 1939, published by DC Comics. The entire contents of this issue are copyrighted and published by All American Comics. This issue was unnumbered and originally planned as a one-shot, but eventually became an annual before having a regular schedule. This features 116 different newspaper strip reprints of Mutt and Jeff, and also the strip Cicero's Cat in this issue. The cover is drawn by Sheldon Mayer under the alias Bud Fisher, and the entire issue is dedicated to Mutt and Jeff and Cicero's Cat, both from writer-artist Al Smith under the alias Bud Fisher. Mutt and Jeff is a long-running and widely popular American newspaper comic strip created by cartoonist Bud Fisher in 1907 about 2 mismatched tin horns. Historians regard Mutt and Jeff as the first American newspaper cartoon published as a strip of panels as opposed to a single panel, making it the first comic strip to successfully pioneer the since now used format. The Mutt and Jeff comic strip remained in syndication until 1983, and Al Smith drew the strip for nearly 50 years. Mutt and Jeff were featured on the front cover of Famous Funnies #1, the first modern format comic book, and reprinted also in the series from All American Comics. In 1939, they were given their own comic book, published until 1958, running 103 issues. Magic Comics #2, September 1939, published by David McKay Publications. This issue went on sale August 9th, 1939. The cover features Henry. Mandrake the Magician is featured in an 8-page story from writer Lee Falk, with art from Phil Davis in this early adventure superhero tale. And Popeye appears in a 4-page story from writer-artist Elsie Segar. Mystery Men Comics #2, September 1939, published by Fox Comics. Fox was one of the early players in the superhero comics game, and this is one of their earliest entries. A Rex Dexter cover features him blasting away on what is the second robot cover ever in comic books. The book also features the second appearance of the Blue Beetle. This issue went on sale July 10th, 1939. Rex Dexter is featured on the cover, drawn by Lou Fine. The Green Mask appears in a 9-page story drawn by Walter Frem in this early superhero strip, featuring Michael Shelby as the Green Mask, plus News Blake, Chu Fan, who is an antique dealer, Fu Young, who is a merchant who also dies in the story. The Green Mask, alarmed at the Tong Wars erupting in Chinatown, seemingly joins forces with the nefarious San Sin in order to find a way to rescue Fong Li's daughter from his evil clutches. This story would be reprinted in The Green Mask #1 in 1940. Rex Dexter of Mars is a 6-page strip written and drawn by Dick Briefer in this science fiction strip featuring Rex Dexter and Professor Landar and the villain monsters, the Capricians, who have their first appearance, and many of them die in this story. A mysterious plague threatens to destroy all life on Earth, and the only cure is radium, but the Earth doesn't have sufficient quantities in order to deal with the disease. Therefore, Rex and Cindy head to the planet Capri to obtain the valuable material. The story takes place in 2000 AD. Zanzibar the Magician is a 4-page story drawn by George Tuska. The supernatural story features the first appearances of Zeus, Hercules, Venus, and the villains, the Greek warriors. The Long Arm of Vengeance is a 2-page text story written by Will Eisner. It's an adventure crime story featuring Barney and Eben. The crew of the Falcon spot a derelict or ghost ship off the starboard bow, and Barney, Marlin, and Clark go aboard to investigate, discovering the corpse of the captain of that ship, a captain that promises justice for Marlin. And it features a ship called the Falcon. The Blue Beetle appears in a 4-page story, possibly written by Will Eisner, with art by Charles Nicholas in this early superhero strip, the second appearance of the Blue Beetle, alias Dan Garrett. A group of thugs rob an armored car of its $80,000 payload and capture the Beetle in the process. The story would be reprinted in Blue Beetle #1 in 1940. Blue Beetle has a costume similar to his official one, but wears no mask in this issue. D13 Secret Agent is a 6-page strip written and drawn by Bob Powell. Smash Comics #2, September 1939, published by Quality Comics. This issue went on sale July 19th, 1939. Over at Quality Comics, the publisher was Everett Arnold and the editor was Ed Cronin. This cover features bondage torture. There's a mile-high pedigree copy of this book from the Edgar Church collection. This is Quality Comics' second oldest comic book title, and it spotlights the Black Ace. Espionage starring Black Ace is the cover spy feature. It features the Black Ace as well as inset images of Wings Wendell, Archie O'Toole, Bozo the Robot, and Abdul the Arab. War in the Far East is the name of the strip for Espionage starring Black Ace. It's 9 pages, written and drawn by Will Eisner. Hugh Hazard and His Iron Man is 7 pages from writer-artist George Brenner under the alias Wayne Reed, in this early science fiction comic strip featuring Hugh Hazard, Bozo the Robot, and Commissioner Hunt. Midget Auto Races is the name of the story for Archie O'Toole, 2 pages written and drawn by Will Eisner under the alias Bud Thomas. The Origin of the Invisible Hood is the title of the story in Invisible Justice, a 5-page strip written and drawn by Art Panagian under the alias Art Gordon, in this early superhero comic strip featuring Kent Thurston as the Invisible Hood and also the scientist Professor Hans Van Dorn. With this issue, the feature is now titled Invisible Justice, but the hero himself is still and always would be called the Invisible Hood. James Cagney, movie star, is featured in the short strip Screen Snapshots, written and drawn by Bernard Bailey. Keen Comics #2, September 1939, published by Centaur Publications. This went on sale on July 21st, 1939. The cover features a boy fishing on a boat. It's a humor cover. The Forbidden Idol of Machu Picchu is a 6-page story. And Range Poison is a 5-page story, which is reprinted from Funny Picture Stories, Volume 2, Number 5 from 1938. Wonderland Comics #5, September 1939, published by Fox Comics. This issue went on sale July 24th, 1939. The cover features the superhero The Flame, drawn by artist Lou Fine, and The Flame appears in a 9-page story written by Will Eisner with art by Lou Fine, and would be reprinted in The Flame #1 in 1940. Vladim the Voodoo Master is the story title of the 8-page story Yarko, written by Tony Blum with art possibly Bob Powell, and this early superhero comic strip, which would be reprinted in Blue Beetle #1 in 1940. Shorty Shortcake is a 6-page story written and drawn by Jerry Iger. An Adventure with Tommy Taylor is a 2-page text story written by Jerry Iger. About to Make a Goodwill Tour of the United States is the title of the story for K-51 Spies at War, 5 pages written and drawn by Will Eisner. And Mob Buster Robinson is 5 pages drawn by George Tuska. Comic Pages, Volume 3, Number 5, September 1939, published by Centaur Publications. This issue went on sale July 21st, 1939. The cover features art, possibly by Jean Fawcett. Amazing Man #5, September 1939, published by Centaur Publications. This is the first appearance and origin of one of the very earliest superheroes, A-Man, the Amazing Man, appearing at roughly the same time as Batman. This is one of the most valuable comics of all time. It is the first issue of this title, Amazing Man. The key issue also features artwork by comic legends and timely Submariner creator Bill Everett, who does the Amazing Man story, as well as Tarp Mills and Carl Burgos. Gerber assigns this book an 8 on its scarcity index, meaning less than 20 copies known to exist. There's a Billy Wright pedigree copy of this book, as well as a Mile High pedigree copy from the Edgar Church collection. This is the first comic published by Comic Corporation of America and remained the only such series until the collapse of the Centaur Publications Inc. line at the end of 1940. This issue went on sale August 11th, 1939. The cover features A-Man the Amazing Man, drawn by Bill Everett, and is an early superhero comic book cover. There is a promotional ad for Amazing Mystery Funnies in this issue. Origin of Amazing Man is the title of the 10-page Amazing Man story written and drawn by Bill Everett in this early superhero strip featuring John Amen as the Amazing Man in his first appearance and origin. This story also features the Council of Seven, the scientist Nika, and Lady Xena, a knife thrower. After being raised for 25 years by the Council of Seven in Tibet, A-Man is tested and sent out into the world. Of the council members, Nika exhorts him to do good and gifts him with invisibility, while the Great Question plots to bend A-Man to his will. In America, A-Man learns of a series of train wrecks and confronts the man behind the disasters. The characters influenced the creation of Peter Cannon Thunderbolt in 1966, as well as Iron Fist in Marvel Premiere in 1972. Once he became public domain, the character was also used in The Protectors #1 at Malibu Comics in 1992. The Catman is a 5-page story drawn by Tarp Mills. And Barton Stone, alias Catman, has his first appearance in this story. Barton Stone finishes his 20-year jail sentence and seeks revenge on his former partners who let his wife die in poverty while he took the rap for all of their crimes. A year later, each partner is visited by a strange old lady with a cat who scratches them. Jack Rhodes is a 3-page story drawn by Larry Riley, and this is the first appearance and only appearance of Jack Rhodes. But Terry, I Tell You I Need Another $10,000 is the name of the 7-page story of the Iron Skull strip, and it is written and drawn by Carl Burgos, another early superhero comic strip featuring the first appearance of the Iron Skull. And the Iron Skull thwarts a scientist's plans to use robots to carry out crime and mechanized spiders to terrorize the town and extort cash from the local government. The Tragic Note is the title of the Amen the Amazing Man 2-page text story written by Matty Point with art by Frank Thomas. In order to explain why he refuses to perform a certain piece of music, Amen tells of his musical testing during his time in Tibet. The Congo War Drum is the title of the 6-page story, written and drawn by Paul Gustafson. It's a jungle story featuring Sandy Thorne and Laboo. Mini Midget is a 7-page strip drawn by John Kolb, another early superhero comic strip featuring the first appearance of Mini Midget, Riddy, and the villain Barmel. The mad scientist Barmel, who had already shrunk 2 people so small that they can fit in his hand, seeks to use Mini Midget to kill his brother in order to inherit his fortune. Thwarted by his brother's will, he sends Mini Midget out again and again to kill everyone who inherited his brother's fortune in his stead. The Land Beneath the Sea is a 7-page story from the Chuck Hardy strip, written and drawn by Frank Thomas. It's an early science fiction comic strip featuring the first appearance of Chuck Hardy and Jerry Peterson. Chuck and Jerry are swept through a crack in the seafloor to an underground land populated by strange creatures. Slim Bradley is an 8-page story drawn by Dick Hayes, an adventure strip about a forest ranger. Origin of Mighty Man is a 7-page strip featured in Mighty Man, written and drawn by Martin Filchok, an early superhero comic strip featuring the first appearance and origin of Mighty Man, as well as Sonny and the Professor. Sonny brings the Professor to the giant valley he found with the Professor's map. They're pursued by bandits, but the giant man they find in the valley rescues them and agrees to come with them into the outside world. There is a promotional ad for Keen Detective Funnies, Volume 2, Number 9, from Centaur Publications. All-American Comics, Number 6, September 1939, published by DC Comics. This is the last issue featuring Sport Savage. Popsicle Pete begins in this issue. At this time, M.C. Gaines was the managing editor, and Sheldon Mayer was the editor. And Sheldon Mayer gave us the artwork for the cover, featuring Scribbly. Mutt and Jeff appears in a one-page story from Al Smith under the alias of Bud Fisher, and Mutt and Jeff would appear in 5 different strips in this particular issue. Red, White, and Blue is an 8-page story, possibly written by Jerry Siegel, with art by William Smith and inks done by Stan Ashmeyer in this adventure strip. A sinister Oriental and his gang blow up a dam to hurt America's prosperity. Adventures in the Unknown is a 6-page story written by Carl Claudy with art by Stan Ashmeyer. It's an early science fiction comic strip featuring the characters Alan Kane, Ted Dolliver, and Elmer the Robot. Back in the ship, the boys bring Elmer with them back to Earth, but the professor is still on Mars. Scribbly returns in a 4-page story written and drawn by Sheldon Mayer. And there is a promotional ad for the latest issue of Movie Comics. Large Feature Comic, Series 1, Number 6, September 1939, featuring Terry and the Pirates, published by Dell Comics. This issue reprints the 1936 dailies featuring the Dragon Lady. It's a 76-page issue in black and white with dimensions 8.5 by 11 1/3. It's an extra big comic, and the early issues all feature heavy, rough stock. Terry and the Pirates is featured on the cover, featuring the characters Terry, Pat Ryan, and Connie. This entire issue is dedicated to Terry and the Pirates. 71 pages worth of strips written and drawn by Milton Caniff from Newspaper Comic Strip, reprints from 1936. Terry and the Pirates was an action-adventure comic strip created by cartoonist Milton Caniff. The daily strip began October 22nd, 1934. In 1946, Caniff won the first Cartoonist of the Year award from the National Cartoonist Society for his work on Terry and the Pirates. The strip was read by 31 million newspaper subscribers between 1934 and 1946. Movie Comics number 6, September 1939, published by DC Comics. This is the first horror genre comic book cover ever, and it's the second robot cover ever on a comic book. It features Bela Lugosi with ray gun in hand in The Phantom Creeps. Gene Autry, Gary Cooper, and Laurel and Hardy also make appearances in this issue. This issue contains stills and original script dialogue from various films. Overstreet lists all 6 issues of this series as scarce, and Gerber gives it a rating of 7. The Phantom Creeps is featured on the cover in this early science fiction / horror cover from the 1939 movie The Phantom Creeps, featuring Bela Lugosi and Dorothy Arnold and Dr. Zane. Buddy Tibbet is a 2-page text story written by John Wentworth with art by Sheldon Mayer. In Old Monterey is a 5-page strip drawn by Jack Adler doing the airbrushes in this Western Frontier strip featuring the singing cowboy Gene Autry. The Phantom Creeps is an 8-page photo story, and there is even a Phantom Creeps contest in this issue, which runs for 2 pages. There's a promotional ad for All American Comics, latest issue in this book. And Laurel and Hardy, the movie star team, are featured in a 4-page photo story. Funny Pages, Volume 3, Number 7, September 1939, published by Centaur Publications. This is a bondage cover by Paul Gustafson and marked the first cover appearance ever of the superhero The Arrow. This issue went on sale July 28, 1939. There is a mile-high pedigree copy of this book from the Edgar Church Collection. The Arrow is featured on the cover in this early superhero comic cover by Paul Gustafson, and the Arrow is featured in a 6-page comic story. Amazing Mystery Funnies, Volume 2, Number 9, September 1939, published by Centaur Publications. The Phantom of the Fair, a hero who stalks the New York World's Fair and has his secret hideout underneath it. This is the character's second cover appearance and the first to clearly show the fair setting on the cover. This issue went on sale August 5th, 1939. The editor at Centaur Publications at this time was Joe Hardy. There's a Billy Wright pedigree copy of this book and a Lamont Larson pedigree copy. Dive of Death is the name of the story of the cover for Phantom of the Fair, drawn by Paul Gustafson in this early superhero comic book cover, and it features Speed Centaur in the inset. Amazing Facts About Pioneer American Homes is the introduction page, edited by Joe Hardy, and it features Speed Centaur and the Masked Marvel. At the bottom of the page is an illustrated promo for Keen Detective Comics and Amazing Mystery Funnies with illustrations of the two heroes. Phantom of the Fair is featured in an 8-page story written and drawn by Paul Gustafson in this early superhero strip featuring Phantom of the Fair. A struggling fair show owner has words and more with a fellow competitor who seems to be stealing every idea that he has had. The rival goes so far as to rig a death dive trap for the girl and might have succeeded if not for the intervention of the Phantom. This story would be reprinted in Phantom Man number 2 in 1940. Air Sub DX is a 6-page strip written and drawn by Carl Burgos in this early science fiction comic strip featuring Captain Tim and Professor Gray. The Hidden Empire Part 2 is the latest installment of the Don Dixon science fiction strip written by Bob Moore with art by Carl Pfeiffer. Rocket Ship Race is a 2-page text story written by Lloyd Jacquet with art by George A. Fish as GAF. This is an early science fiction comic strip. Tom was determined to win the rocket ship derby race, even though his competitor Reggie Saunders was known for not sticking to the rules. And the rocket ship is called the Flash. Speed Centaur is an 8-page story drawn by Malcolm Kildale, and this is an early superhero comic strip featuring Speed Centaur and Real McCoy. Daredevil Barry Finn is a 6-page strip drawn by Tarp Mills in this adventure strip, which features Barry Finn and Joan Hart and Professor Walton. Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin and Benito Mussolini are all villains that make cameos in this story. This is likely Adolf Hitler's first appearance in comic books. Keen Detective Funnies, Volume 2, Number 9, September 1939, published by Centaur Publications. This issue went on sale July 28, 1939. The editor at Centaur was Joe Hardy. There is a Mile High Pedigree copy of this book, a Billy Wright Pedigree copy, a Cosmic Aeroplane Pedigree, and a Davis Crippen D-copy pedigree. The Masked Marvel is featured on the cover, drawn by Ben Thompson in this very early superhero comic book cover. A gang of stamp counterfeiters has been flooding the market is the feature story in Masked Marvel, which runs for 10 pages, written and drawn by Ben Thompson, and would be reprinted in Masked Marvel number 2 in 1940. The interior back cover features an ad for Amazing Mystery Funnies Volume 2, Number 9. Single Series Number 10, featuring Little Mary Mix-Up, September 1939, published by United Features Syndicate. There is a Mile High Pedigree copy of this book from the Edgar Church collection. Little Mary Mix-Up is featured on the cover with a script possibly written by Robert Moore Brinkerhoff, who was the normal writer and artist of this strip. And on the cover, Mary draws a halo on a portrait of herself. The entire issue is dedicated to Little Mary Mix-Up and All in the Family. All in the Family is the topper strip. The comic strip Little Mary Mix-Up by cartoonist Robert Moore Brinkerhoff was distributed by United Features Syndicate from 1917 to 1956. It debuted as a gag-a-day strip featuring mischievous 9-year-old girl. However, Mary aged slowly over time, and by World War II, she was an adventurous teenager who could participate in the war.